2026, and our dear friend Anthony Aguilar is here with us. Welcome back, Tony.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Tony, again, we have a new attack on Iran happening, and you are updated. What is happening, and how do you compare tonight's attack to last night's attack?
So looking at last night's attacks by the United States of America on locations in Iran around Sarik Island and basically around the coastal areas of what I would say is the southern portion here. Here's the Gulf of Oman. Here's Sarik, generally where Sarik is. Here's Bandar Abbas. This is the real part of the strait right here. So this is where the U.S. was operating its distant blockade. And again, we saw a lot of those attacks going into the final, before this deal broke and this MOU was agreed upon, where the United States focused a lot of its attacks, both naval and aerial, in those same locations. So last night's strikes were back to that. Why Sarik? Well, Sarik has command and control components, headquarters of both the IRGC Navy 2nd Maritime Division and the Iranian Navy Maritime Division. Both of those have responsibility. They share responsibility of the Strait of Hormuz throughout it on both sides, both incoming from the Persian Gulf side and incoming from the Gulf of Oman side. So command and control. The United States struck command and control. The communications that the United States struck were not necessarily critical to military operations and communication, but they were important. I wouldn't say critical, but important for maritime commercial communication. So think about it in the military. Military vessels and military units are operating typically on VHF or UHF or satellite communications, SATCOM. Well, in commercial vessels, navigating the strait itself, although they're still probably on SATCOM and GPS, there's direct communication through which you would consider commercial communication, direct UHF, etc. So it seems like the communication locations that were hit by the United States didn't really have an impact on military operations or weren't necessarily a hard hit. But the strike once again as the command and control signifies that the United States is once again attempting to shape conditions in the Strait of Hormuz specifically. And then tonight, the U.S. strikes escalated. There was more of them, and they were more broad in terms of where they struck. We saw Qasem Island being struck directly. The areas of Qasem Island that were struck were the areas where there is command and control or administrative control or security control over the airfield that's there. There's an airport there. So if you're looking at strikes on Qasem Island, you don't want to destroy the airfield. You don't want to destroy the airport itself, operations, but you want to set conditions to go and take it. Those strikes look like that. But then we also saw strikes in Bandar Kong, which is if you look at in the Strait of Hormuz, here's Qasem Island. Bandar Kong is right here off on the coast itself of Iran. And what does that matter? Well, Bandar Kong is a important logistics and operational outpost for the IRGC Navy that specifically operates in that portion of the Persian Gulf. So we have U.S. strikes that have hit IRGC Navy operations, communications, and command and control on the Gulf of Oman side of the Strait of Hormuz, and now strikes today in Bandar Lagan and Bandar Kong and Qasem Island, which greatly impact the IRGC Navy and the IRN control in the Persian Gulf side. So looking at those strikes, that paints a very clear picture. That paints a picture of operational intent to what the United States strikes are doing and why. I think that we're going back to, it's become very clear to me that what we've been in for the last few weeks is really just the great facade of the Munich Agreement in 1938, where the British and the French negotiated a peace deal, and all the while peace was being negotiated. Neville Chamberlain even called it the peace of our time, that it was going to prevent World War II. And the entire time, all Nazi Germany and Hitler were doing was preparing, using that time of peace, that peace interval to prepare, and then boom, out of nowhere, Nazi Germany attacks Czechoslovakia, takes all of it, boom. They had no intent to negotiate. So I think what we're seeing now is based on the pressure from Israel and from the United States on Donald Trump and the US administration, that the US administration looked at this at one point and said, okay, we're going to give a pretty good show. We're going to give some really good theater about this whole MOU. Switzerland, the signing, we'll do it all. But we're fully intent on simply using this time to then go back and hit Iran and maybe change the calculus of this MOU. Because from the United States perspective, you're looking at it and you're saying, we don't like it. How do we change the calculus? We're not worried about anymore about nuclear material, nuclear sites, the regime, the Navy, the Air Force, and all that. We're going to focus specifically on the Strait of Hormuz because we now realize that that is the blue chip, the trump card that Iran has in these negotiations. And we want to change that calculus. So I think that's what we're seeing the United States doing now, is that. And the pretense to that was the Iranian disabling of a Singaporean ship moving on the Omani side through the Omani channel against the protocols that have been established by Iran. So I think that was the pretense that the United States used. Now we are back in terms of we've had strikes, we've had responses, we've had a response, we've had a response, and we've had yet another response now by the United States on top of last night's strikes. So we're, for lack of better term, we're back at war.
What do they want to achieve, Tony? Look at what the United States is doing basically by this tit for tat, this sort of escalation. It's going to be huge if Iran decides. Let's see what Iran would do tonight. Last night, as Associated Press reported, it was drone attack on Bahrain. And tonight, I think they're going to attack Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan if they escalate. I don't know where these fighter jets are coming. Where do they come from? And where is the location of these fighter jets? Are they coming from Jordan? Are they coming from some other areas? I don't see in Kuwait and Bahrain, they don't have these fighter jets.
So nothing, fighter jets aren't necessarily going to come out of Kuwait or Bahrain. Now, Bahrain has been hit hard. So why did they hit Bahrain again? And what you saw today, which came out in the news, which was concealed largely by the United States, was that the U.S. Navy Central Command and the U.S. Navy Fifth Fleet that was headquartered in Bahrain, they're gone. They've left. They're in Israel. The United States never really made that clear. I think Iran knew that, but again, when you look at the components of national power, diplomacy, information, and the military, the economy, there's always aspects of diplomacy and information in there to show that the United States lost more than they're telling the American people. That look, we struck Bahrain, and now your government has come out and said, no big deal, there's nothing there anyway. So the United States Fifth Fleet, U.S. Navy Central Command, the pride of Central Command's Navy fleet, up and left Bahrain. That is a defeat. That is a defeat on the battlefield. And now we see that. So that's a win for Iran. Strikes in Kuwait. Ali al-Salim, largely missile sites or logistics, not necessarily fighter jets, but potentially a target. So where would these fighter jets or U.S. Fighter aircraft emanate from? Well, Saudi Arabia or Jordan. There are airfields in both. There's the Salti base, Arzak in Jordan. There's the Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. These are locations that the United States not only has fighter jets, but also fuelers, logistics, munitions depots to rearm jets, the whole package at either of these two bases, if not both. So those locations are clearly possible of supporting continued military strikes. So, if Iran is looking at where, that would certainly be on the target deck. Now, the purpose of the strikes by the United States, I think, would be twofold. One, degrade where we already know there is capability to degrade in terms of Iranian capability. But two, light up the network again. Figure out where Iran has moved things during this interval of peace, this interval of not fighting, because the United States knows, or at least should know, I hope, the United States should know that Iran still possesses a very robust and in-depth missile, drone, and hypersonic armament. They have that. We did not degrade it. We did not destroy it. They still have it probably at the same level, if not more than they did before February 28th. The question is now, how have they moved it? How have they modified it? How have they made adjustments? Because if there's anyone that's thinking that Iran going into this peace interval was just, oh, peace, we can just, we can take a knee, take a breather, don't have to worry about that, you'd be foolish. They certainly are planning. So I think part of this now is the United States trying to repaint that picture of, okay, where are things now, but then also refining the military objective to where, we were trying to do it all, to where let's just do this. Let's do this and see if that changes the calculus and the conditions of a new MOU. Can we reshape this MOU? So I don't think the United States wants to get rid of the MOU altogether, but they certainly want to reshape the aspects of paragraph 5, which is the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah. And paragraph 1, the first clause of MOU is basically talking about Lebanon. You see what's going on in Lebanon with the new agreement.
When it comes to clause 1, the United States has once again chosen its mistress Israel, and is basically we have this other negotiation going on between Marco Rubio and Israel Lebanon, right? We have this side quest negotiation going on that's in direct contradiction to the MOU conditions within paragraph or clause 1 of the MOU. They're in direct contention with one another. That's clear. So that is the great distraction. That is the is where the United States wants Iran to focus, to either draw Iran into a conflict, either in direct response to Israel or to other sites, other locations. All the while, the United States is really focused on that. I don't think the United States could care less about Lebanon. I don't. I'm just being honest. I don't think that Donald Trump cares less about if Israel stays or goes in Lebanon. I don't think Donald Trump cares. But it is a condition that Iran very much cares about and is not willing to step down from. So what can the United States do to potentially change that leverage? Well, it's the Strait of Hormuz. And what better time than now? Well, there's this negotiation going on, and at each step of the way, you can paint Iran as the villain, right? This Singapore vessel that was going through the Strait of Hormuz was using the Omani channel, outside of the very clear communication and conditions and parameters that Iran put forth. Use this part. And some people may say, oh, well, it's international water, it's their sovereign territory, they have the right to do it. Well, yes and no. If I'm on the highway and there's very clear indicators of here's the entrance ramp, here's the exit ramp, and I consider myself, well, it's a road, it's a highway, I have a car, why don't I just go up the exit ramp? Well, you certainly could, but you would be violating laws and putting people in danger, right? So you can't just plow through the Strait of Hormuz. It would be like if somebody just went through the Panama Canal without any clearance or authorization. Just, here I go. You wouldn't make it very far because there'd be no one there to fill the locks and get you through it. So there's coordination that has to happen. So the Singapore vessel going through the channel outside of that was predetermined, coordinated, and Iran gave warning, and then Iran struck with a drone. Iran didn't blow it up. Iran didn't sink it. Iran didn't kill anybody. Iran didn't make a huge explosion or destroy the ship. It disabled it by hitting the engine room. And guess what country has done exactly that at a minimum of 8 times, and in doing so has also killed Indian maritime sailors in doing so? The United States. We did it to enforce our distant blockade, which is an act of war, by the way, a blockade. So the United States has been doing that up and until this MOU, and it was described by Western media and others as that United States uses precise restraint in disabling vessel. Okay, but then Iran does it, and Western media immediately blows it up with Iran attacks vessel, reignites hostility. No, they did exactly what is expected in terms of maintaining the conditions of the Strait of Hormuz. So it's very important that we look at both actions equally. If we're going to call one a heinous attack, well, then the other's a heinous attack. And the United States sure did a lot worse. If we're going to call it maintaining the conditions of the Strait of Hormuz as dictated by that in power, which is Iran, well, then that's what it was. They didn't destroy it. They didn't sink it. They didn't kill anybody. They disabled it.